Hey, welcome back to Pop Culture Graveyard. I am Hollis, and this week I'm going to pay tribute to my all-time favorite TV show, Columbo. I don't just think it's one of the best TV shows ever. I think it is the best TV show ever. That's why I'm taking a break from music this week to bring you a magnificent 7 of my favorite Columbo episodes. These are my personal favorites. This is all very subjective. I don't know what your personal favorites are, but please let me know in the comments. I love Columbo in all its forms. I loved his original episodes. I loved the later rebooted TV movies. I loved co-creator William Link's set of stories about Columbo. I love Richard Levinson and William Link's book, Stay Tuned. I love the Columbo File casebook, comprising the first 2 TV movies as well as the full run of the original series. I even love biographies of Columbo star Peter Falk talking about his life, in both hardcover and softcover. I even love novelizations that have Columbo trying to solve the Manson family murders. I say all of this because I want you to realize just how much I love Columbo, and that I'm not playing games with you. So all you hardcore Columbo files, I am one of you. And for the rest of you, I hope you are a Columbo fan by the end of this episode. So please join me for a magnificent 7 of my favorite Columbo episodes. Wait, I have one more thing. I don't. Never mind. Before we get rolling, I just want to thank my newest patron. Thank you, Mort. I really appreciate the support. You are the coolest. If any of you would like to support the show, please consider joining my Patreon. It is at patreon.com/popculturegraveyard. And thanks. Now on with the show. In case you're wondering about what criteria I use to pick my favorite episodes, here's what I think makes a great Columbo episode. 3 simple things. The villain, and the villain. One of the hallmarks of the series was that Columbo, the lead character, didn't even show up until 20 minutes into the episode. So the villain has to be interesting, fun, or sexy. And if you're lucky, all 3. I'm looking at you, Ruth Gordon. Now I warn you all about spoilers, but you've had 50 years to watch these episodes. Besides, Columbo isn't a whodunit. It's a how's he gonna catch him? So knowing who the killer is doesn't hurt your enjoyment of this series. Here are my favorite Columbo episodes in order. First up, Murder by the Book, Season 1, Episode 1. This was the first broadcast episode as a series within the NBC rotating mystery wheel. That also featured McLeod and McMillan and wife. Anyway, why do I love this episode? To begin with, everything. Talk about starting an episode off on the right foot. You have the series creators, my beloved Richard Levinson and William Link, producing and plotting this particular episode. You have the script itself, written by Stephen Bochco, long before he created Hill Street Blues and LA Law. And the director of this episode is a very young Steven Spielberg. So on the production side of things, you've got the TV equivalent of an all-star team. And that's not even mentioning the cast. This episode features the ideal Columbo villain actor, Jack Cassidy. Columbo co-creator William Link summed up perfectly the quality that Jack Cassidy has when playing a Columbo villain. Preening arrogance. Levinson and Link designed Columbo to play opposite elegant, regal, pompous, overconfident characters. And it's that contrast between the lowly lieutenant and the high-class villain that really makes this series click. Jack Cassidy plays Ken Franklin, the lesser half of a best-selling mystery writing team, with James Ferris, played by Martin Milner from Adam 12. Ferris wants to go on and write by himself, and Jack Cassidy's Franklin, who hasn't written a word in years, is going to have no money coming in to support his outrageously lavish lifestyle. And so he figures he'll kill his partner for the insurance money. Franklin ends up killing 2 people in this episode. One is his partner, and the other is a woman, Lily Lasanka, who got way too close. It is a credit to Jack Cassidy that even when he's killing these likable, sometimes lovable characters, we still can't help but like him a little bit. There's a sort of shine to him. And I can't help thinking, even when he's doing the most heinous things, man, that guy is living his best life. Jack Cassidy's villains are the equivalent of the scorpion that stings the frog when it's getting him across the river. You can't get angry at him for being a scorpion. He can't help it. Levinson and Link gave this team a similarly alliterative name, Ferris and Franklin, and there are subtle in-jokes, such as the book that Ken Franklin autographs to one of his victims is named Prescription Murder, which was of course the first TV movie starring Columbo, which had previous to that been a hit play. I also love that the writing team, Ferris and Franklin, write a popular series of books about a character named Mrs. Melville. Mrs. Melville is clearly based on Miss Marple, the Agatha Christie sleuth. When Levinson and Link wrote this series, they specifically set it in a sort of fantasy world. It wasn't going to be anything you think of when you think of a cop show. You wouldn't see any blood, there wouldn't be a shootout, there wouldn't be a car chase. Columbo had more in common with an Agatha Christie kind of drawing room mystery than it ever did a show like Mannix, which Levinson and Link also created. It's a very cerebral show. It's all dialogue and brain power. That's my kind of cop show. From the opening shot, you know you're in the hands of a skilled director. Steven Spielberg hits this one out of the park. I love the opening that Spielberg chose, from the car driving on the street, panning out, opening on the city, coming in through the glass walls, into the mystery writing team's office, where Martin Milner types away on the typewriter. Masterful. And the closing shot is amazing too, ending on the painting of Mrs. Melville looking at us with that knowing eye. You get cool locations like that lake in San Diego, or the tail of the pup, where the lieutenant buys the insurance guy a hot dog. The cat and mouse game between Falk and Cassidy is amazing, and it's one of my favorite types of Columbos, where the victim himself plays a hand in catching the killer. Dynamite episode, and a hell of a way to kick off the series. Next up, Dagger of the Mind, Season 2, Episode 4. Another device that I really love about Columbo shows is the one where Columbo goes on a seemingly benign trip, and then wouldn't you know it, somebody got murdered, and he's got to get his hands dirty and solve the case. For this episode, Columbo goes to England. He is sent to London by his office as a sort of foreign detective exchange program. They never really explain it, but it works brilliantly, and it helps to enhance the prestige of the character. It's also got a heaping helping of ambiance, thanks to London itself. We get Big Ben, we get the Thames, we get Old Scotland Yard, we get Buckingham Palace, and again, for the sake of contrast, putting little rumpled Columbo in the middle of all these settings makes him look more unassuming than ever. The two villains in this episode, the villain and villainess, if you will, are the husband and wife theatrical team of Nicholas Frame, played by Richard Basehart, and Lillian Stanhope, played by Honor Blackman, Pussy Galore herself. It's probably difficult for people today to understand just how big Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton were back in the 70s. Liz and Dick were larger than life, and they would star in plays together, they would do movies together, but stories of their fighting and of their making up afterwards were legendary, and Basehart and Blackman do an expert job at portraying that kind of couple. Anyway, Basehart and Blackman are starring in a new production of Macbeth, which is produced by Sir Roger Havisham, played by John Williams, who, even if you don't know him by name, you know him by face. He was the father of Sabrina in Sabrina. He's the police detective in Dial M for Murder. He was the insurance man in To Catch a Thief. And he is equally brilliant here, using his very small screen time to get out some exposition and to advance the plot. We're initially led to believe that Honor Blackman's character is having a love affair with the older producer, but her husband is actually in on it, and they are together trying to bleed money out of him to do whatever productions they want. Sir Roger Havisham finds out about this, and he is accidentally murdered. This is one of those rare Columbos that justifies its 2-hour running time. When you pick it apart, you can tell where it's padded, but it does not seem padded because of the great character performances. The husband and wife may have murdered Sir Roger by accident, but when his butler, played by the brilliant Wilfred Hyde-White, figures things out and tries to blackmail them, they for sure murder him on purpose. They make it look like a suicide, but again, Columbo is not deterred. The episode ends a lot like a season 1 episode, Death Lends a Hand, with Columbo basically entrapping the murderers. He falsifies evidence in both cases, and if he wasn't so damn lovable about it, it might be kind of chilling, but in Columbo's mind, he knows they did it, and they just need a little nudge to confess. And in both cases, he's right. Also of note in this episode is Bernard Fox, who plays Chief Superintendent Dirk of the Yard. He's a wonderful character actor, and he would make another appearance in the Columbo series, and on this list. Up next, A Stitch in Crime, Season 2, Episode 6. This episode has it all. A swinging party up in the Hollywood Hills, a kaleidoscopic drug freakout, a rare outburst of anger from Columbo, and even a Vulcan. That's right, my beloved Leonard Nimoy guest stars in A Stitch in Crime. Leonard Nimoy's cold and cunning surgeon, Dr. Barry Mayfield, is a stark contrast to the lovable Lieutenant Columbo, and it's the interplay between the two of them that makes this episode so great. Dr. Mayfield is also one of the rarest villains in that Columbo actively does not like him, so much so that he gets up in his face and straight up accuses him of murder. Those kind of outbursts were rare for the lieutenant. Another rare thing about this episode, Dr. Mayfield never actually gets to kill the one guy he's trying to kill. Yet he ends up killing two people just trying to cover up his murder attempt and to throw suspicion off himself. He wants to murder his old doctor friend, played by Will Geer. So when he does his heart valve operation, he uses dissolving sutures, which are going to give way after a time and, I assume, kill him? Although it seems like if those sutures did give way, he still would have had enough time to have a second operation and save him. So I don't understand that slow boil attempt at killing him. Anyway, the nurse finds out, and all of a sudden he's killing her with a tire iron. He's planting morphine under her sink. To throw suspicion off him for that, he's chloroforming an ex-junkie, shooting him up, letting that guy die. And then in the end, he's got to do an operation that saves the old guy anyway. Nuts. By the way, if you watch no other part of this episode, you have to watch the drug freakout scene with psychedelic lighting, a shaky camera, and eerie music. It comes across as a Universal Studios suit-wearing executives version of a drug freakout. Anyway, along the way, there are so many great scenes. The party scene at Dr. Mayfield's house is pure perfection. It uses dozens of extras who all have wonderful throwaway lines, and it's a real credit to director Hy Averback that he managed to pull that off. By the way, what drug is the maid on who directs Columbo to the buffet? Oh yes, yes sir, right over here. Help yourself, yes. Ah. What the hell? It's not even a high-grade drug. She seems jacked on like bathtub crank. Anyway, we watch Columbo get an upset stomach in real time. But he keeps on eating because his character is hungry. That may be the best acting Peter Falk has ever done. I could watch Columbo eat all day long. The way he takes down that plate of antipasto, it's a master at work. It's like watching Bob Ross paint. It relaxes me somehow. One performance worth noting is Nita Talbot as Marcia, who steals every scene she's in as the neurotic, man-crazy, superficial roommate of murder victim Sharon, played by the beautiful Anne Francis. By the way, at the end of the episode, when Columbo has him cornered and has the evidence in his hand, I know this wouldn't happen, but part of me kept expecting for Leonard Nimoy to just reach across, give Columbo the Vulcan nerve pinch, and then run out of the room. In the end, Leonard Nimoy's Dr. Mayfield is yet another in a long series of villains, who is caught thanks to his inability to keep himself from getting involved. If you need me for anything, give me a call. What? If I could have given some advice to all Columbo villains, it would have been this. Quit doing too much. Oh no, Sharon was murdered? That's terrible. Good luck, Lieutenant. How hard is that? Up next, Any Old Port in a Storm. Season 3, Episode 2. This episode blends a modern-day Cain and Abel tale with characters who make day drinking their religion. The villain is the wonderful Donald Pleasance, who plays Adrian Carcini, owner of a winery. He murders his handsome brother Rick, locks him in his wine cellar, and heads off to Fun City, New York. Upon his arrival home, he puts Rick in his scuba gear, and he dumps him in the ocean. This is another rare Columbo episode, much like Dagger of the Mind, which justifies its 2-hour running time. This is a delightful episode for many reasons. Watching Columbo and Adrian Carcini become fonder and fonder of each other as the episode goes on is really one of the most heartwarming aspects of the entire series. At one point, Adrian says to him, "You learn very well, Lieutenant." And Columbo's touched, and he's like, "That's the nicest thing anybody ever said to me." As good as Columbo is, and he was seldom better, Donald Pleasance steals this episode. His wonderful English accent and the clipped cadence in which he speaks have a field day with this dialogue. Titian would have gone mad trying to mix such a beautiful red. I sound like Katharine Hepburn, but the cadence is just otherworldly. One of my favorite lines of his is, "Nobody needs a $5,000 bottle of wine, Karen. I just don't want anyone else to have it. But his best line of dialogue, hands down, has to be, "An exciting meal has been ruined by the presence of this liquid filth." That whole damn meal scene is just excellent. From Vito Scotti putting Columbo at a table near the kitchen when he doesn't know who he is, to Columbo talking about his babysitter situation, to the wine steward. It's a masterclass of actor business. We should not like Donald Pleasance. He kills his brother. At the end, he shows no remorse. But I just find him fascinating. From his big Elizabeth Taylor glasses that he wears in his office, to his little collapsible getaway bike that he put in the trunk of the car when he was ditching his brother's body. I never knew what this guy was going to do next. This episode features a few more firsts. This is the first appearance of the song "This Old Man," which was a favorite song of Peter Falk's. Columbo whistles it in one scene while he's on the phone, and it would become a recurring theme in future episodes. This is also the first appearance of wonderful character actor Vito Scotti. For many years in the 60s and 70s, when you needed an Italian actor, you didn't get a Vito Scotti type, you got Vito Scotti. And occasionally on Gilligan's Island, when you needed a Japanese man, you got Vito Scotti. In any case, this episode features one of the most bittersweet endings of any Columbo, with the lieutenant sharing a glass of wine with Adrian at the winery before finally driving off for the official booking and arrest. It's a lovely way to put this brilliant episode to bed. Up next, Troubled Waters, Season 4, Episode 4. Much like Dagger of the Mind, this takes Columbo out of his normal setting. He is on a cruise ship. It is the rarest of Columbos where we get to see him in the beginning of the episode, and he actually rubs elbows with the villain, the incomparable Robert Vaughn, the man from U.N.C.L.E. himself, Napoleon Solo, who along with Jack Cassidy and Robert Culp are the big three great Columbo villains. This episode was directed by Ben Gazzara, Peter Falk's good friend and his co-star in Husbands. Robert Vaughn is being blackmailed by the super hot singer on the cruise ship, so he induces a fake heart attack. He gets sent to the infirmary. He sneaks out and murders her and comes back to his bed with the perfect alibi. But Columbo isn't buying it. Robert Vaughn's character, Hayden Danziger, is a wonderfully calm, cool, and collected villain. Perfect to play off of Columbo. And much like Leonard Nimoy's character, Dr. Mayfield, Robert Vaughn's character makes that wonderful mistake of helping Columbo any way he can. This episode features Patrick McNee from The Avengers as the ship's captain, and Bernard Fox from the Dagger of the Mind episode shows up again as the ship's purser. One brilliant little trick that this episode does is they include Mrs. Columbo on the ship, only we never see her. She is only referred to. There is of course a murder, and the captain asks Columbo to get involved and try and solve it. Late at night, the purser comes knocking at Columbo's door, tells him the captain wants to see him, and Columbo, who doesn't know what it's about, says, "My wife likes to have a good time. Sometimes she gets carried away." I want to know just how hard Mrs. Columbo partied that night. We even see Columbo at one point out of his traditional suit into regular slacks and a casual shirt. And I just love Columbo, who is normally a fish out of water, being a real fish out of water because he's not even on duty. And he's literally on the water. And they filmed aboard a real cruise line, the Sun Princess, during an actual trip down to Mexico. So you can see actual customers mixing with the actors. My favorite Robert Vaughn scene is him popping amyl nitrate tablets under his nose. Anyone who used to party with Paul Lynde, I believe you call them poppers. From finding the poppers in the pool filter, to dusting a gun for Prince, to firing a gun into a mattress, we get to see Columbo do way more forensic science than any other episode of Columbo. From beginning to end, this is one of the most entertaining episodes there is. Up next, Now You See 'Em. Season 5, Episode 5. The Great Jack Cassidy returns. He was in another one, Publish or Perish, which I love, but it just didn't crack my top 7. This episode has it all. Murder, magic, and Nazis. Jack Cassidy plays the Great Santini, a former Nazi turned magic star who is playing a seemingly never-ending residency at the Cabaret of Magic. Jack Cassidy kills it in every way you can kill things. The Great Santini murders his boss, who had been blackmailing him and was finally going to blow the whistle on his Nazi past. The Great Santini has the best alibi of anyone who's ever done a Columbo. Oh, I was suspended in a tank of water when that happened. What now? and Columbo tries to figure out what happened with the aid of Sergeant Wilson, who looks up to the lieutenant. Incidentally, his name is now John Wilson. It was Freddie Wilson back in the Greenhouse Jungle. It was a rare continuity problem for the normally meticulous production team. Wilson is played by Bob Dishy, who is absolutely wonderful. Some of the great things I love about this: it's got great clues. And it was rare to have great clues. And it was a difficulty the writers encountered again and again and again trying to get good clues. Here we have the murder victim, and he had sweat going up to a certain mark on his back, so they knew what chair he was in. They had a lock that couldn't have been picked, but it was picked. They had a witness that used to know Santini in the old days, when he had a German accent. And of course, the greatest clue of all, the typewriter ribbon that is disposable and maintains what it was you were writing. Great clues all around. There are many things to love about this. Robert Loggia guest stars, and he's a minor partner with the guy who got murdered. The drop-dead gorgeous Cynthia Sykes plays the great Santini's daughter and his assistant in his magic act. Cynthia Sykes would later find fame also on NBC with St. Elsewhere. She is jaw-droppingly beautiful, and she's dating the singer. One of my favorite things about this episode is Patrick Culleton playing the singer Danny Green. He sings the song Charade several times in the episode. Charade is by Henry Mancini. Henry Mancini was also the author of the mystery movie theme, which is the theme to Columbo. Anyway, it is the worst rendition of Charade you have ever heard in your life. It is lifeless, it is monotone, it is lugubrious. He barely opens his mouth. And the best part is that at several points, hey, I gotta go audition or whatever. And Sergeant Wilson at one point is like, Danny Green, he wants out of his contract. He's got a big job ahead of him. No one is hiring this guy. Playing at games, acting out names. People are like, yeah, all right. You gotta love extras that just go for it. Oh, he's supposed to be a good singer? Yeah. Woo! The episode even features Columbo wearing a different raincoat. His wife gave it to him as a present, and he can't stand it. It's dark brown, it fits too tight, he can't think in it, and he keeps trying to leave it places, hoping someone will steal it. And Sergeant Wilson keeps bringing it to him. Hey, you forgot this. There's so much great business in this episode. Even watching Jack Cassidy do, like, magic tricks. It's a fascinating episode. And it's fulfilling on many levels. As appealing as Jack Cassidy's character is to watch, we enjoy seeing him go down. We can forgive a devilishly clever villain in Columbo a lot of things, but not being a Nazi. Come on. And seeing Columbo present the evidence with which Santini goes down with a little magical flair really shames him in a great way. Incidentally, the great character actor Michael Lally appeared in several Columbos, but he was brilliant here as the high-wire guy who used to work with Santini back in the old days. The two share a beer, and it's delightful. Having Columbo walk around his apartment and ask him how much he pays each month and is the hot plate his, it's genius. Incidentally, Michael Lally was a favorite of Peter Falk, and Peter used to have his driver pick up Michael Lally every morning on their way to the set because he enjoyed him so much. So Michael Lally might be in more Columbo episodes than anyone else. Now You See Him is a brilliant, brilliant episode. And finally, Try and Catch Me, Season 7, Episode 1. This episode features the brilliant Ruth Gordon, easily the oldest of the Columbo villains, as a sort of modern-day Agatha Christie. The author she portrays, Abigail Mitchell, is convinced that her nephew-in-law murdered her beloved niece. The police, though, don't see it that way and label it a boating accident. This was no boating accident. So she plays the long game and tricks him into getting into her safe, which she locks, and then she heads off to New York. In fact, there's a humorous shot of the plane going and coming back, and Abigail's just living it up each way. I know a lot of people watching this episode probably wanted Ruth Gordon to go down for nothing more than payback against Minnie Castevet for what she did to Rosemary. And she really plays up that adorable, cute, harmless quality that she had. She doesn't look like a murderer, and she knows it. And her character is so cunning and savvy. After writing book after book after book about the perfect murder, she seems pretty confident that she can execute one of those perfect murders without getting caught. Enter Columbo. While Columbo feels for Abigail Mitchell and the pain over the loss of her niece and her wanting to avenge the death, he does not feel so much for her that he would disregard his duty to do his job. And there's a lovely scene of them playing with words on a dock, where they're both revealing an awful lot through subtext. This is a great episode with tons of twists and turns. You can tell her lawyer suspects that she's the murderer, but her assistant flat out knows she's the murderer. You think she's actually going to get caught a couple of times. She does not. There's a wonderful scene in which Columbo gives a speech. Abigail Mitchell puts Columbo on the spot and has him come up at a speech she's giving at a ladies' luncheon. And it's one of the best insights into his character in any episode. Just a masterfully written episode. And it's another of those episodes I love where the victim plays a part in catching the killer. One of the best gotcha endings of any Columbo. I hope you enjoyed this magnificent 7 of my favorite Columbo episodes. Please tell me what your favorite episodes are in the comments. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe, and I will see you next week with a lot more cool stuff.